I'm Brenda Earle Stokes, the owner of Piano and Voice with Brenda, unique online courses that will take your playing to the next level. Today I've created a tutorial all about creating vamps for bossa novas. For anyone who is a jazz instrumentalist, vocalist, or enthusiast, you know that bossa nova is a staple of jazz music. Songs by Antonio Carlos Jobim, João Gilberto are a part of our repertoire and we love to perform them. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different vamps that work really, really well in bossa novas and other Latin influenced styles. Each one of these vamps works great as an introduction, a solo section, or even the ending of a song. Before we go any further though, let's ask the question, what is a vamp? Okay, if you're not familiar with this term, a vamp is a short section of music that repeats over and over and over. Usually it's 2 or 4 bars that are repeated over and over. Each of the 3 vamps I'm going to show you will really work great as an intro, as a solo section for a piece, or as an ending for the song. So let's get started. So for this tutorial, I'm not just going to show you the vamp, I'm also going to show you voicings that sound really great over each vamp, plus what linear pitch material you can use to solo on it. So let's get started. The first one I lovingly refer to as the Jobim. Antonio Carlos Jobim, as I'm sure you know, was one of the great songwriters of bossa nova music, one of the great singers, one of the great performers of bossa nova. And he had a really unique vamp that showed up a lot in his wonderful songs. And for this one, it's harmonically a little tricky to get at first. So imagine that you're in the key of D major. The vamp that you're going to play will actually go D minor 7 to G7, okay? So let's have a look at this on the piano. If you're in the key of D major, all right, you're going to start by playing D minor 7 and you're going to play to G7, and that's going to be your vamp. Now I've come up with some nice chord voicings for this that sound really great. You can do them in either octave, and I'm going to play 3, 5, 7, 9, and here's G7. Right? You can also play it down the octave if you prefer. Right? Doesn't that sound familiar? So what would you solo over for this? Well, D minor 7 and G7 are 2, 5, 1 in the key of C, which is why this is so strange, because aren't we in the key of D, but this little vamp is actually in the key of C. So what I've got here for you is you could play the Dorian scale, the D Dorian scale. So you could go, or if I were to sing it, so that sounds really terrific. The other way that you could actually solo over this is if you thought of something that was a little bit more bluesy, okay? And a lot of people take this Jobim thing and turn it into something that's bluesy. So let's do the same thing. I've created a little pattern that sounds kind of cool over this, just to give you a chance to feel what the bluesiness sounds like. So you could go, I could go dee doo dee 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 doo doo dee doo dee doo 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 dee. So ultimately you could use a combination of both of them. So let me vamp a little bit on this Jobim thing and go between singing something that's more D-Dorian and then also going towards something that's more bluesy. You could go. Great, so you can see how I went back and forth between the Dorian scale a little bit and the bluesy pattern for soloing. Depending on the tempo of the song and the feel, you could kind of choose which one you like. And as I said before, this works great for the intro, for a solo section, but you can also end the song on a vamp as well. So this is a great thing for you to use. So the next vamp that I want to show you is what I call the up a half step. I know, I couldn't think of a really clever title, so we're just going to call it what it is. The up a half step. And I'm going to show you two different versions of this that really sound great. And so we're going to think about, if we're in the key of C, our vamp will go from C major 7 to D flat 7 sharp 11. All right, and D flat 7 to C major is actually a substitution for G7. The D flat 7 is. It's a tritone substitution. I mean, you don't have to understand that if it sounds like gobbledygook. But what it means is that the 3rd and the 7th of G7 and the 3rd and the 7th of D flat 7 are the same. Now, if you were to play a vamp that was C major 7 going to G7, that would be super boring and would sound probably a little strange. But if we use the tritone substitution and go from C major 7 to D flat 7, it sounds fantastic. And I've opted to use the sharp 11 on the D flat 7 because it actually makes the movement from C major 7 to D flat 7 a little bit more cohesive. So let me show you how we're going to do this. So the voicings that I'm going to use are as follows. C major 7, I'm going to play the root in the left hand, and in the right hand I'm going to play the 7th, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 13th. Now you may say, isn't that the 6th? Technically, I guess you could say it's the 6th, but I like to use it as the 13, call it that, because we actually have the 7th in this chord as well. So that helps to kind of clarify. And so we're going 7, 3, 5, and 13. Okay? And then to go to the D flat 7 sharp 11, we're actually going to go up here. You're going to play the 7th, the 3rd, the 11, and the 13. Listen to that. That's nice, right? And so let's go back to the C major 7. Okay? What's interesting to note about this is that only 2 of the notes are going to change when we go from chord to chord. So we're going 7, 3, 5, 13, and then look at this. So the 2 notes that stayed the same are the B, or the C flat in the case of D flat 7, and the 5th becomes the sharp 11. And then the other notes go from the E and the A, they go up like this, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can hear that. Da, 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 da. That's the sound of the G. You could also just focus on the B or the C flat. 2, 3, 4. Da, 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 da. Kind of really great practice of ear training too, to be able to hear the notes of the chord. So what you're going to use to solo over this is you're going to use the C major scale. And then for the D flat 7 chord, we're going to do D flat Lydian dominant, okay? And so what this is a kind of a combination between Mixolydian and Lydian. So it means, here's for D flat, I'm playing the root, the 3rd, and the 7th in the left hand so you can hear this. And my right hand is going to go 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. So that's honoring the sharp 4. okay, the sharp 11, and then you're going to go 5, 6, 7, okay? So there's some commonality between the two of these, isn't there? Excellent. So whether you're going to improvise on this as an instrumentalist, then that's the pitch set that you could use, or as a vocalist if you want to start to get a sense of what's there. So now I'm going to create a little vocal improvisation just so you can hear what this sounds like as a groove, as a little vamp. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can hear, that actually may even sound familiar to you, where you're like, wait a second, I know this, I've heard this before, all right? So that's a great one that you can use. Now we're gonna have a look at an alternative to the up a half step. This is what I'm calling up a half step version 2, because I just wasn't feeling poetic when I came up with the name of this. And so instead of going from the C major 7 to the D flat 7, all right, we could go from C major 7 to D flat major 7. So it means that the two chords are more similar, like the quality of them is similar, all right? And so what I'm gonna do for the voicing strategy here is I'm gonna go 3, 5, 7, 9, okay? And then for D flat major 7, I'll do the same thing, 3, 5, 7, 9, okay? Now you could do it down the octave if you want, or you could do it here, whatever sounds better to you. All right, so we can hang out. Let's try it down the octave. On this all day. It's like sort of taking a nice bath in major 7 chords. So what information would we use to solo on? Once again, with the C major 7 chord, I'm just going to play the C major scale, like easy. For the D flat major 7, I'm going to use the same alteration that we used for the D flat 7 chord in the one before, but this one we're going to just play straight up Lydian because we're playing a major 7 chord. And that means you're going to go 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, major 7. Okay, so you're going to go. And you might say, what's with the sharp 4 on the D flat major 7 chord? This gives a little bit of commonality between the two keys, and having that G in common actually is really nice sounding. So let's hang out on the second for a second, and I'm going to kind of show you. So that's the note I want to show you. That sounds really good. This is the G, 2, 3, 4. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 having that G in there really kind of adds some nice color to it. And once again, this is like the best ear training you could possibly do. It's a really great way for you to start to really hear some of this movement. So that's the one that I've so eloquently referred to as the up a half step. Once again, works great as an intro, okay? Works great as a solo section, and also would be fantastic as an outro to the piece, like as a sort of an end vamp. One thing I would advise you against, though, is to use it as an intro, solo vamp, and an outro. Your audience at that point would probably be either asleep or they would have left already. So either do a short intro using that and then use it as a longer vamp in the middle, or save the whole thing until the very end of the piece. All right, you don't want to overdo it with some of these vamps. So the last vamp that I put together is one that I lovingly refer to as the Dindi. And Dindi, which is spelled D-I-N-D-I, it's pronounced in Portuguese as Dindi instead of Dindi. This is from the intro or the verse to the song Dindi, where she goes, "Sky so dark as the sky with faraway clouds just wandering by." And it is the prettiest. Oh, it's such a beautiful sound. So it's super easy to play. It's, again, 2 parallel major 7 chords. That's part of what gives Jobim's music that kind of feeling of like, it just feels so open, and it feels, there's just something so like just pretty and beautiful about it. And this is one of those techniques that he uses, is using a lot of major 7 chords. So there, you're going to voice this the same way as we voiced the C major to D flat major. So you're going to go 3, 5, 7, 9, okay? And then for the B flat major 7 chord, you're going to do the same thing, 3, 5, 7, 9, okay? And back to the B flat major 7 chord. Listen to how pretty that is. You could just sit and listen to that all day, right? And if you want, you could take this voicing and invert it. This sounds pretty too. La la la. Wait, what are you playing? Okay, I'll tell you, it's super easy. C major 7, you're going to play C major scale, all the white notes, why not? And then for the B flat major 7 chord, you may have seen this coming, we're going to do the Lydian again, B flat Lydian. So 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, major 7. Okay, so you're going to go. And this again helps us to have some commonality between the two, although there could be an argument made in favor of doing C major scale to B flat major scale. Okay, so I urge you, try both, because, you know, see which one you like better. So I'm going to give you a little bit more of me sort of noodling around. Remember, this E is common between the 2 keys, so why don't we hang out on that a little bit? Da, do, da. Right? You could just sit and listen to that forever. It's so pretty. So those are my 3 cool Bossa Nova vamps. And remember, any of these can be used as an intro, as a solo section. It's great for having kind of an open vamp that goes into a fade out at the end. Remember though, you don't want to go overboard with them. You don't want to do a long solo as an intro, a long solo as a solo section on the vamp, and then a long solo at the end. So what you could do is just use the chords at the very beginning, sort of as a vamp without improvising over it. and then maybe use it again at the end for more of an improvised vamp at the end where you'd kind of stretch out. You could also use it for just a very minimal vamp at the end, start right on it at the intro without using a long introduction or using something else as an introduction, and then you could solo on this in the middle of the song for a great solo vamp instead of soloing over the whole form. If you're an educator and you're watching this, because I know I have a lot of educators who follow my channel and my work, this is a great way to get your students to improvise. So if you have a jazz choir, if you have a small jazz ensemble or a big band, and you want to get your students to improvise, these vamps are a fantastic way to get started. And it's something that is relatively easy to kind of throw into a lot of different songs. And actually, some of these would work great on swing tunes too. I mean, you could really mix and match these in a lot of different environments. But if you have your students soloing on 2 chords instead of a huge amount of chords, it's a great way to get started. So just for my educator friends, please feel free to try this with your students, and you may get a little less of that scared look from them. Also, if you're somebody who is watching this who is at a sort of a more beginning part of your improvisation journey, improvising over a vamp is a really great way to start. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial today. Please take a moment and hit subscribe and leave a comment below telling me what you thought of the video and making suggestions for what I should cover in my next video. If you have any questions or you want to see more of my work, you can go to pianoandvoicewithbrenda.com and check out all of the tutorials and blog posts and other great materials that I have available. Thanks for watching.